The research ship Serenity's Hope moved quietly through the dark space between stars. Its hull gleamed silver-white, covered in smooth curves that made it look more like a flower than a machine of war. Inside the ship, Dr. HFY worked at her station, her forearms moving across holographic displays with practiced ease. Her large compound eyes studied the data streams flowing past her screen. HFY belonged to the Zephyrian Collective, a group of peaceful species that explored the galaxy together. Her people looked like giant praying mantises, but they ate only plants and spent their time learning about the universe. The collective had strict rules about contact with new species. They only visited worlds where gentle, plant-eating creatures lived. The ship's computer made a soft chime. HFY's antennae twitched as she saw something unusual on her screen. A signal was coming from a system they had marked as forbidden. The star charts showed a yellow star with several planets, but the third planet carried a red warning label: Deathworld. Deathworlds were places too dangerous for civilized life. They had too much radiation, violent weather, or deadly creatures. The collective stayed far away from such places. Nothing intelligent could possibly live on a Deathworld and survive. But the signal was definitely coming from that terrible place. HFY called Captain Veltar to her station. The captain was a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with gentle eyes and no weapons on his belt. Like all collective officers, he believed in peace above all else. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from the Forbidden System," HFY said, her voice clicking softly through her translator device. "The signal appears to be a distress call." Veltar studied the data. The transmission was crude and primitive, using old radio frequencies that most civilized species had abandoned thousands of years ago. But the pattern was clear. Someone was asking for help. "That's impossible," Veltar said. "Our surveys show that system contains only a death world. Nothing could live there." "Perhaps someone's ship crashed there," HFY suggested. "A mining vessel or exploration craft. They might be stranded." Veltar considered this. Collective law said they must help anyone in distress, even if it meant breaking other rules. "Set course for the system," he ordered, "but keep us at maximum sensor range. We'll investigate carefully." The Serenity's Hope changed direction and began moving toward the yellow star. As they got closer, HFY picked up more signals. These weren't distress calls, these were military communications, and they were coming from multiple sources throughout the nearby systems. "Captain," HFY called out, her voice tight with fear, "I'm detecting large ships in the neighboring systems. They're attacking civilian colonies." The main screen showed what their long-range sensors had found. Massive black ships, each one larger than their entire research vessel, were destroying peaceful settlements. The attackers moved with cold efficiency, destroying defenses and then landing troops to capture survivors. "Who are they?" Veltar asked. HFY worked to decode the attackers' communications. What she found made her hands shake. "They call themselves the Void Reapers, Captain. They're not like us. They appear to be part machine, part biological organism, and they're heading this way." On the screen, they watched a Reaper ship finish destroying a colony world. The planet's surface glowed with fires visible from space. The black ship then moved to the next world in the system. "How many colonies have they destroyed?" Veltar asked. 17 systems so far," HFY replied. "They're moving in a straight line through our territory, consuming everything in their path." Veltar felt cold fear in his stomach. His people were peaceful. They had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight such monsters. "Send out an emergency signal to all collective fleets. Tell them to evacuate the civilian populations immediately." As HFY sent the warning, another transmission came from the Death World. This one was different. It was a response to the original distress call they had detected. The signal was much stronger now, and it was being broadcast on multiple frequencies at once. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was deep, rough, and somehow dangerous. But the most shocking thing was that it spoke in dozens of languages simultaneously. Languages the collective had never heard before. "Message received," the voice said in perfect Zephyrian, then repeated the same words in 40 other tongues. "Calculating response parameters. Analyzing threat assessment. Do not despair. Help is coming." HFY stared at her instruments in shock. "Captain, the transmission power needed to broadcast like this. It would require the energy output of an entire planet." "What kind of civilization has that much power?" Veltar wondered aloud. Before anyone could answer, proximity alarms began screaming. 3 Reaper ships had appeared at the edge of the system, moving directly toward them. The black vessels were each 10 times larger than the Serenity's Hope, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. "They've found us," Veltar said. "All power to engines. Get us out of here." The research ship turned and ran, but the Reaper vessels were faster. Energy beams lanced through space around them, growing closer with each shot. HFY watched her instruments as their shields began to fail. Then something impossible happened. Another transmission came from the Death World, this time directed at the Reaper ships. The message was short and spoken in a language that sounded like controlled violence. "This is Earth," the voice said. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system, or be destroyed." The Reaper ships ignored the warning and continued their attack. Exactly 30 seconds later, the space around the Death World began to change. Ships appeared. Not 3 or 4, but hundreds of them. They materialized from the dark like predators stepping out of shadows. Each ship was different from the others, but they all shared the same quality. They looked like they were built for war. The vessels from the Death World moved with deadly purpose toward the Reaper ships. They didn't try to communicate or negotiate. They simply attacked with a ferocity that shocked the watching aliens. In less than 10 minutes, all 3 Reaper ships were destroyed. Not damaged or disabled, completely annihilated. Nothing remained but expanding clouds of debris. The Death World fleet then turned toward the Serenity's Hope. Veltar prepared to flee, but instead of weapons fire, they received another transmission. "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress signal. Please identify yourself and state the nature of your emergency." HFY looked at her captain with wide, frightened eyes. "What do we do?" Veltar thought for a moment, then activated their communications array. "This is Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective Research Vessel Serenity's Hope. We sent no distress signal. We were investigating a transmission from your world when we were attacked." There was a pause. Then the human voice replied, "Captain, we've been monitoring communications in this sector. We know about the Void Reapers. We're here to help. Can you provide us with information about their fleet movements?" "You want to fight them?" Veltar asked in amazement. "They have destroyed 17 systems. They cannot be stopped." "Captain," Admiral Chen said, and there was something cold and final in her voice. "You don't know us yet. We're from what you call a death world. We're very good at stopping things that need to be stopped." The Serenity's Hope found itself surrounded by ships from a species they had never imagined could exist. As HFY studied the vessels on her sensors, she realized that everything the collective thought they knew about life in the universe was about to change. The emergency session of the United Terran Defense Council began at 400 hours, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display showing star charts that stretched across half the galaxy. Red markers indicated the path of destruction left by the Void Reapers as they consumed one peaceful civilization after another. Around the circular table sat the most powerful military leaders on Earth. General Rodriguez represented the ground forces, Admiral Petrov commanded the Space Navy, and Director Walsh spoke for intelligence operations. They had been monitoring alien communications for 60 years, always choosing to stay hidden while they watched the galaxy from the shadows. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Chen began, "first contact has arrived whether we wanted it or not." The room fell silent as she activated the recording of the alien distress call. The desperate voice of Captain Veltar filled the chamber, speaking of peaceful research missions and Reaper attacks on innocent colonies. General Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "How many ships do these Reapers have?" "Intelligence estimates. At least 3,000 vessels," Director Walsh replied. "They move in groups of 50 to 100 ships, destroying everything in their path. No survivors, no negotiations, no mercy." Admiral Petrov studied the star charts with experienced eyes. "Their advance pattern is clear. They're moving through the outer rim territories, consuming the peaceful species first. Eventually, they'll reach the core systems, including Earth," Admiral Chen said quietly. The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. For decades, humanity had debated whether to reveal themselves to the galaxy. Some argued for peaceful contact, others for continued isolation. But the approaching threat changed everything. "What do we know about these aliens who called for help?" asked General Rodriguez. Director Walsh brought up images of the Zephyrian ship. "They call themselves the Collective. Multiple species working together for peaceful exploration. They've never developed serious weapons or military technology. Their ships are designed for research, not war. They're herbivores," Admiral Chen added. "Plant eaters," They've probably never seen real violence in their entire history. Admiral Petrov laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Then they have no idea what they've awakened. Admiral Chen nodded and pressed another control. The holographic display showed Earth's hidden military assets. Orbital shipyards that had been disguised as research stations. Weapon testing facilities, hidden in the asteroid belt. Fleets of warships that officially didn't exist. Operation Nightfall has been in development for 30 years, she explained. We built it assuming we'd eventually face a hostile alien invasion. We just never expected to use it to save other species. The ships shown in the display were unlike anything the peaceful galaxy had ever seen. They were built by humans who understood that the universe was a dangerous place. Every vessel carried enough firepower to level a planet. Every weapon system was designed to kill efficiently and without mercy. The question before us, Admiral Chen continued, is whether we reveal ourselves to save these aliens knowing that once we do, there's no going back. The galaxy will know that humans exist and they'll know what we're capable of. Director Walsh pulled up psychological profiles of the alien species they had been monitoring. Most galactic civilizations are peaceful herbivores or filter feeders. They evolved on safe worlds with few predators. War to them means small conflicts over resources, usually settled by negotiation. They have no concept of total war, General Rodriguez added, no understanding of what happens when an entire species decides to fight for survival. Admiral Petrov stood and walked to the display. If we help them, we'll be announcing ourselves as the most dangerous species in known space. Every alien civilization will fear us. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Admiral Chen replied. Fear prevents wars. If the galaxy knows that Earth protects the innocent, maybe fewer species will try to be predators. The debate continued for 2 hours. Arguments flew back and forth across the table, as humanity's leaders wrestled with the biggest decision in their species' history. Some worried about revealing their strength too early. Others argued that helping the aliens was a moral imperative. Finally, Admiral Chen called for silence. The Reapers' projected path will bring them to this sector within 5 years. We can fight them here or we can fight them there. But we will fight them. She pressed a control and new images filled the display. These showed the full extent of Earth's military preparation. Shipyards that could build 100 vessels per month. Weapon stockpiles that could supply a 1,000-year war. Training facilities that had been preparing soldiers for alien combat since the 1980s. Humanity has spent 60 years getting ready for this moment, Admiral Chen said. We've built the most powerful military force in galactic history. We've trained for every possible scenario. We've prepared for war on a scale these peaceful aliens can't even imagine. General Rodriguez smiled grimly. And now we get to show them what a Deathworld species looks like when it goes to war. The vote was unanimous. Operation Nightfall would begin immediately. Within 6 hours, the largest military mobilization in human history was underway. Reserve forces were activated across all continents. Shipyards that had been running at minimum capacity suddenly operated at full production. Weapons stockpiles were moved to forward positions. The news that aliens existed spread across Earth's communication networks faster than military sensors could contain it. But instead of panic, something unexpected happened. Humanity united with a purpose they hadn't felt since the Second World War. Veterans emerged from retirement, reporting to recruitment centers in uniforms they hadn't worn in decades. Factory workers volunteered for overtime shifts to build weapons and ships. Even civilian cargo vessels were pressed into military service as supply transports. Dr. Elizabeth Kovich, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, watched the mobilization from her office at the Defense Research Institute. She had spent 20 years studying intercepted alien communications, trying to understand how other species thought and behaved. They have no idea what they've awakened, she murmured to herself, echoing Admiral Petrov's earlier words. Her analysis of the collective species showed peaceful herbivores who had never experienced real violence. They solved conflicts through discussion and compromise. Their idea of warfare was small skirmishes that lasted days, not the total conflicts that could consume entire star systems. They're about to meet humanity, she said to her assistant, a species that evolved from persistence hunters on a world that regularly tries to kill everything on it. They're going to learn what happens when you threaten something humans decide to protect. Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, the hidden fleets began moving. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels revealed their true nature as heavy cruisers. Research stations opened their docking bays to release swarms of fighter craft. The asteroid belt came alive with military traffic as humanity's secret Weapons emerged from decades of hiding. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the dreadnought Indomitable. Through the viewports, she could see hundreds of ships forming into battle groups. Each vessel represented years of human ingenuity and preparation. Each crew had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving the coordinates of the alien refugee convoy. They're requesting immediate assistance." Admiral Chen nodded. "Signal the fleet. All ships, prepare for jump to hyperspace. We're going to show the galaxy what Earth means when it promises to help." As the first human fleet prepared to leave the solar system, a message was broadcast to every major alien civilization in the galaxy. It was simple, direct, and spoken in 200 different languages. "This is Earth. We have received your distress call. Help is on the way. To those who harm innocents, your time is ending." The age of humanity's hidden existence was over. The full galaxy was about to discover what happens when the children of a death world decide to go to war. The Terran fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates provided by the Zephyrian research vessel, and what they found was far worse than anyone had expected. Stretching across space for millions of kilometers was the largest refugee convoy in galactic history. Thousands of ships filled the void between stars. Some were massive passenger liners carrying entire populations. Others were tiny personal craft holding single families who had fled their burning worlds. Many vessels showed battle damage from Reaper attacks, their hulls scarred and emergency patches visible across their surfaces. Captain Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the scene through his ship's viewports. In his 30 years of military service, he had seen refugee camps and disaster zones, but nothing on this scale. Entire civilizations had been forced to abandon their home worlds and flee into empty space. "Sensors are showing over 12,000 vessels," his tactical officer reported. "Multiple species representations: Zephyrians, Altarians, vegan pacifists, and at least 20 other races we don't have files on." Torres nodded grimly. Each ship represented thousands or even millions of beings who had lost everything to the Void Reapers. Their worlds were gone, their governments destroyed, their way of life ended forever. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving hundreds of transmission requests. They want to know who we are and why we're here." "Put me through to the convoy leaders," Torres ordered. "All frequencies, all languages." The main screen filled with alien faces, each one showing a mixture of hope and terror. Torres could see why they were afraid. The human fleet looked nothing like their peaceful research vessels. Every Terran ship bristled with weapon systems and armor plating. They had been built for war, and it showed in every line of their construction. "This is Captain Marcus Torres of the Terran Defense Force," he began, his voice being automatically translated into dozens of alien languages. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The response was immediate chaos. Hundreds of alien voices spoke at once, some pleading for protection, others demanding to know what humans were and where they came from. Torres held up his hand for silence. "I know you have questions," he said. "We'll answer them all. But first we need to establish security. Our sensors show Reaper scout ships in nearby systems. This convoy is not safe here." A Zephyrian captain, Torres recognized from intelligence files, stepped forward. It was Veltar, the officer who had first encountered human forces. "Captain Torres, we are grateful for your assistance. But we must know, what do you want in return for your help?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Throughout galactic history, military aid always came with a price. Species helped each other only when they expected something in return: resources, territory, or political favors. Torres looked directly at the alien captain. "We want nothing except to stop the Reapers from destroying more innocent lives." The silence that followed was deafening. The concept of fighting without expecting reward was alien to most galactic species. They had evolved on peaceful worlds where resources were abundant and conflicts were rare. The idea of total war fought for moral reasons was beyond their understanding. Dr. Kesahai appeared on screen next to Captain Veltar. Her compound eyes studied Torres with scientific curiosity, mixed with obvious fear. "Captain Torres, our scans of your vessels show massive energy readings. Your ships appear to be designed entirely for combat. What kind of world produces such technology?" Torres exchanged glances with his diplomatic officer, Commander Lisa Park. They had prepared for this question, but the answer would shock these peaceful beings. "We come from what you classify as a death world," Torres explained. "A planet with high gravity, dangerous radiation, violent weather, and aggressive predator species. We evolved in an environment that constantly tried to kill us. The alien faces on screen showed various expressions of disbelief and horror. Several species had strict policies against contact with Deathworld inhabitants, believing them to be inherently violent and unstable. "That's impossible," whispered an Altarian delegate. "No intelligent species could evolve in such conditions. Deathworlds produce only monsters." Commander Park stepped forward, her expression calm but determined. "With respect, delegate, you're looking at proof that you're wrong. Humans not only survived on our Deathworld, we conquered it, and now we use the strength it gave us to protect others." Dr. Kesahai's antennae twitched nervously. "Your world, the radiation levels, the atmospheric composition, the gravity readings we're detecting from your ships. How do you survive such conditions?" "We don't just survive them," Torres replied. "We're shaped by them. Every human is stronger, faster, and more durable than most galactic species. We can think clearly under stress that would paralyze other beings. We can make life or death decisions in seconds." The implications of his words sank in slowly. These aliens were meeting a species that had evolved in conditions that would kill them instantly. Humans were, by galactic standards, living weapons, shaped by a hostile universe. An emergency alarm interrupted the conversation. Torres' tactical officer called out urgent readings. "Captain, we have Reaper scout ships approaching from 3 different vectors, 6 vessels total moving at maximum speed." The alien ships in the convoy immediately began broadcasting panic signals. Their few defensive vessels, research ships hastily fitted with mining lasers, moved to form a protective screen that everyone knew would be useless against Reaper technology. "All civilian vessels, withdraw to minimum safe distance," Torres ordered. "Terran fleet engage the enemy." What happened next redefined the aliens' understanding of space combat. Instead of the formal honor-bound warfare practiced by galactic species, the humans employed tactics that seemed impossibly aggressive. The Terran ships didn't form neat battle lines or issue formal challenges to their enemies. They scattered across space like a pack of wolves, using the refugee convoy's debris field as cover, while smaller craft darted between the Reaper vessels like deadly insects. Torres watched his tactical display as his captains implemented strategies that would be considered war crimes by galactic standards, ramming attacks, boarding actions, and the use of disabled enemy ships as kinetic weapons against their own forces. "My God," whispered Dr. Kesahai from the refugee convoy. "They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to terrify." The Reaper scouts, despite their technological superiority, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of engagement. Human ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting with massive hull breaches. Crews that should have surrendered instead launched suicidal attacks that crippled enemy vessels. In less than 20 minutes, all 6 Reaper scouts were destroyed, not damaged or disabled, completely annihilated. The human fleet then methodically destroyed every piece of Reaper technology, ensuring nothing could be salvaged or studied. The refugee convoy watched in stunned silence as the humans regrouped. Not a single Terran vessel had been lost, though. Several showed battle damage that would have killed the crews of any other species. Captain Veltar was the first to break the silence. How did you do that?" Torres looked at the alien captain with eyes that had seen too much war. "We've been preparing for this fight our entire lives. Every human child learns that the universe is dangerous, and that only the strong protect the weak. We don't fight for glory or honor. We fight to win." The weight of first contact settled over both species as they faced each other across the communication channels. The peaceful aliens had just witnessed the arrival of the galaxy's apex predators, beings who had evolved in hell and emerged stronger for it. "What happens now?" asked Dr. Kesahai. Torres looked at the massive refugee convoy, then at his own fleet of warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets if necessary. "Now we take you somewhere safe, and then we go hunting Reapers." The age of peaceful galactic civilization was ending. The children of Earth had announced themselves to the universe, and nothing would ever be the same. The main Reaper fleet arrived 3 days later with all the ceremony of a natural disaster. 200 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their black hulls absorbing light like wounds in reality itself. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, covered in weapon ports and armor that gleamed with an oily, organic sheen. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the enemy fleet deploy through the tactical hologram. Behind, The refugee convoy had been moved to what the humans optimistically called a safe distance, though everyone knew that if the Terran fleet failed, nowhere in the system would be truly safe. "They're beautiful in a terrifying way," observed Commander Park, studying the Reaper formation through her binoculars. The enemy ships moved with mechanical precision, but there was something alive about them too. Sensor scans showed that each vessel was part organic, part machine, a fusion of biology and technology that created something more dangerous than either could be alone. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "the Reapers are broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear what they have to say," Chen ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was like grinding metal mixed with screaming wind. It spoke, in a language that hurt to listen to, but the universal translator made its meaning clear. "Organic resistance is futile. You will be harvested for biological components. Your technology will be absorbed. Your worlds will be consumed. Surrender, now, and your deaths will be swift." The message was followed by recordings of previous Reaper victories, images of burning worlds, enslaved populations, and the systematic destruction of entire civilizations filled the communication channels. It was psychological warfare designed to break morale before the first shot was fired. Admiral Chen switched to the fleet-wide communication frequency. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. You've just heard the Reaper's surrender demand. I assume you all have the same response I do." A chorus of laughter and profanity came back over the channel. "Captain," Torres' voice cut through the noise. "Admiral, the Indomitable requests permission to send our own message to the enemy fleet." "Granted, make it memorable." Torres activated his ship's external speakers at maximum volume. His voice boomed across space with enough power to be heard on every vessel in both fleets. "Reaper fleet, this is Captain Marcus Torres of the Terran. Ship Indomitable. We've reviewed your surrender terms and find them unacceptable. Here are our terms. Turn around, leave this system immediately, and never threaten innocent beings again. You have 30 seconds to comply, or we will demonstrate why Deathworld species don't negotiate with predators." The response was immediate. Every Reaper ship opened fire at once, filling space with enough energy to sterilize a planet. Beams of coherent light and streams of plasma reached across the void toward the human fleet. But the Terran ships were no longer where the targeting computers expected them to be. Admiral Chen had deployed her forces using tactics that no civilized species would consider. Instead of the formal battle lines preferred by galactic military doctrine, the human fleet had scattered across a volume of space larger than most star systems. They used asteroids, debris fields, and even the radiation shadow of the local star as cover. "All ships execute Plan Fenrir," Chen ordered. What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. The humans didn't fight like a navy. They fought like a pack of wolves hunting prey that was bigger and stronger than any individual member of the pack. Squadrons of human destroyers darted between the massive Reaper ships, their smaller size, and higher speed allowing them to avoid the enemy's main weapons. They struck at engine clusters and weapon batteries, then vanished back into the debris field before the Reapers could respond. Meanwhile, the heavy cruisers used the cover provided by the destroyers to line up devastating attacks on enemy command structures. Human nuclear weapons, crude by galactic standards but terrifyingly effective, detonated against Reaper hulls with the force of small stars. Captain Torres watched his tactical display as the battle developed exactly as human strategists had planned. The Reapers were used to fighting species that valued honor and formal rules of engagement. They expected their enemies to meet them in organized formations where superior firepower could decide the outcome quickly. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Human ships appeared from unexpected angles, delivered crushing attacks, and disappeared before retaliation was possible. Worse, the humans seemed to grow more dangerous as they took casualties. "Sir," Torres's tactical officer reported, "the Defiant has lost main power and is venting atmosphere, but they're still firing weapons." On the main screen, Torres could see the heavy cruiser Defiant with massive hull breaches along her port side. By all rights, the ship should have been dead in space. Instead, her crew had switched to backup power and were using their remaining weapons to ram a Reaper vessel 3 times their size. The collision destroyed both ships, but the explosion crippled 2 more Reaper vessels and opened a gap in their formation that 3 human squadrons immediately exploited. Dr. Keshai watched the battle from the refugee convoy's command ship, her compound eyes struggling to process what she was seeing. "They're not just fighting to win," she said to Captain Veltar. "They're fighting to send a message to every Reaper in the galaxy. The message was becoming clear as more Reaper ships fell to human attacks. These Deathworld creatures didn't just defeat their enemies. They annihilated them so completely that nothing remained to threaten others. When a Reaper ship lost main power, human boarding parties didn't try to capture it. They planted nuclear charges throughout the vessel and destroyed it from within, ensuring that no Reaper technology could be recovered or reverse engineered. When Reaper crews attempted to surrender, the humans ignored them. There would be no prisoners, no negotiations, no mercy for those who preyed upon the innocent. The Reapers had declared themselves to be predators, and now they were learning what happened when they met a more efficient predator. Admiral Chen monitored the battle from her command center, watching as her carefully planned tactics destroyed an enemy force that should have been invincible. The Reapers had superior technology, larger ships, and overwhelming firepower. But they had never faced an enemy that had evolved in an environment where losing meant extinction. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Reaper vessels." Chen looked at the tactical display showing the remaining enemy ships. Less than half the original Reaper fleet remained operational, and those that did were badly damaged. Their perfect formation had collapsed into chaos as human attack squadrons struck from every direction. "Negative," Chen replied coldly. "No prisoners, no survivors. These things have consumed entire civilizations. Today that ends." The final phase of the battle was less a fight than an execution. The remaining Reaper ships, crippled and scattered, were hunted down one by human forces that showed no fatigue, no mercy, and no intention of stopping until every enemy vessel was destroyed. When the last Reaper ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, space fell silent except for the calm chatter of human crews checking on their damaged vessels. The refugee convoy sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Captain Veltar was the first to speak. "In all of galactic history, no one has ever achieved such a complete victory against superior forces." Commander Park's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional despite the magnitude of what had just occurred. "Captain, this wasn't a complete victory. This was a demonstration. We wanted every Reaper in the galaxy to know that Earth will hunt them to extinction if they continue threatening innocent beings." Dr. Keshai studied the debris field that had once been 200 Reaper ships. Her scientific mind struggled to understand how such a one-sided victory was possible. "Your casualties? How many ships did you lose?" Admiral Chen's response was delivered in the flat, emotionless tone of a professional soldier reporting facts. 14 vessels destroyed, 37 damaged but operational. Total crew casualties, 812 dead, 2,043 wounded. The numbers hung in the air like a challenge to everything the galactic species thought they knew about warfare. The humans had destroyed a fleet that should have been able to conquer entire star systems. And they had done it while suffering losses that were barely statistical noise compared to the enemy casualties. "How?" whispered Captain Veltar. "Admiral." Chen looked at the alien captain through the communication link, and her smile was sharp as a knife. "We're very good at war, Captain. We've had millions of years of practice." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Harmony Station, a massive diplomatic facility that orbited the galaxy's most ancient and peaceful world. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that had never included human sounds before. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the entrance to the Yao chamber, wearing her full dress uniform with its collection of medals that told the story of humanity's hidden wars. Behind her walked Captain Torres and Dr. Elizabeth Kovach, representing the military and scientific aspects of human civilization. Their escort was a full honor guard of human marines, each one looking like they could wrestle a bear and win. The assembled aliens fell silent as the humans entered. Most had only seen humans through communication channels or sensor readings. To see them in person was deeply unsettling. They moved with the fluid grace of predators, their eyes constantly scanning for threats even in this place of peace. Counselor This Anar of the Peaceful Union rose from his crystalline speaking platform. He was an ancient being, nearly transparent, with age, who had guided galactic diplomacy for over 2 centuries. His voice carried the weight of accumulated wisdom when he spoke. "We welcome the representatives of Earth to this emergency session. Though your species is new to us, your actions have already changed the balance of power in our galaxy." Admiral Chen moved to the speaker's podium with confident strides. Around her, hundreds of alien eyes studied her every movement. She could sense their fear, their confusion, and their desperate hope that these dangerous newcomers could somehow save them from threats they couldn't handle themselves. "Honored counselors," she began, "Earth thanks you for this opportunity to address the Council. We come not as conquerors or threats, but as protectors of innocent life." A ripple of nervous sounds passed through the assembly. The concept of a military species claiming to protect others was difficult for most galactic civilizations to accept. Counselor Vreen of the Herbivore Alliance stood up, his flower-like head swaying on its long stalk. "Admiral Chen, our records show that your fleet completely destroyed a Reaper force of 200 ships. No survivors were taken, no prisoners were captured. How do you call this protection?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Throughout galactic history, civilized species had fought limited wars with clear rules about treatment of prisoners and minimal casualties. The human concept of total warfare was alien and frightening to these peaceful beings. Admiral Chen looked directly at Counselor Vreen. "Counselor, the Reapers had destroyed 17 star systems and enslaved billions of innocent beings. They broadcast the screams of their victims to terrorize their next targets. They showed no mercy, asked for no negotiations, and offered no surrender terms except death or slavery." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We gave them the same mercy they showed to your colonies." Dr. Keshai, who had been granted special permission to attend as a witness, activated her speaking device. "Admiral, the Council needs to understand the scale of what your species accomplished. Our military analysts say it should have been impossible." "Dr. Keshai is correct," Admiral Chen replied. "By the standards of galactic warfare, our victory was impossible. But Earth doesn't fight galactic warfare. We fight total war. War where the goal is not just victory but the complete elimination of the threat." Counselor Thusanar leaned forward on his platform. "Admiral, you speak of total war as if it were a good thing. But war should be limited, controlled, ended quickly with minimal casualties on both sides." Dr. Kovac stepped forward to address the question. "Honored counselors, with respect, your approach to warfare assumes that both sides are civilized beings capable of negotiation and compromise. The Reapers proved they were not civilized. They were predators, pure and simple." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's evolutionary history. Humans evolved on a world where predators were a constant threat. We learned that when faced with something that wants to kill and eat you, negotiation is not an option. You either destroy the predator completely or it comes back stronger. The images showed Earth's violent past: ice ages, meteor impacts, supervolcano eruptions, and mass extinctions that would have ended most galactic species. But humanity had survived them all, growing stronger with each challenge. Captain Torres spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the authority of a veteran warrior. "Counselors, we understand that our methods seem harsh to species that evolved on peaceful worlds. But we've seen what happens when predators are allowed to exist. They don't stop. They don't negotiate. They consume everything until nothing remains." Counselor Zenth of the Trade Federation raised a tentacle to speak. "Captain Torres, your species has revealed weapons and tactics that could destroy any civilization in the galaxy. What guarantee do we have that Earth won't become the next threat? We need to fear." The question that everyone had been thinking finally hung in the open air. The humans had just demonstrated that they were the most dangerous military force in known space. What would stop them from using that power for conquest? Admiral Chen's response was simple and direct. "Because, Counselor, we could have conquered the galaxy already if that was our intention. We've been monitoring your communications for 60 years. We know the location of every major world, every military installation, every weakness in your defenses." The implications of her words struck the assembly like a physical blow. Earth had been watching them for decades, studying them, learning their secrets. The humans could have attacked at any time and achieved total victory before anyone even knew they existed. But we didn't, Admiral Chen continued. We stayed hidden, we stayed peaceful, until innocent beings called for help. That tells you everything you need to know about human intentions. Dr. Kovac added her scientific perspective. Counselors, human psychology is driven by what we call the protector instinct. We are most dangerous when defending others, not when seeking conquest. A human will fight harder to protect a stranger's child than to claim territory for themselves. The bar. Debate continued for hours as the council struggled to understand a species that didn't fit any of their categories. Humans were clearly predators, but they used their predatory nature to protect prey species. They were devastatingly violent, but only against those who threatened others. Finally, Counselor Thisanar called for order. Admiral Chen, What does Earth want from the Galactic Council? Nothing, Admiral Chen replied simply. We don't seek territory, resources, or political power. We want only the right to protect innocent beings from those who would harm them. And if the Council refuses this request? Admiral Chen's smile was sharp as a weapon. Then Earth will protect them anyway. With or without your permission, we will hunt down every Reaper fleet, every aggressive species, every threat to innocent life. The only difference is whether we do it as partners or as an independent force. The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed this ultimatum. Earth was offering them a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. The humans would do what they felt was right, regardless of political approval. Counselor Vreen spoke hesitantly. What you're describing sounds like galactic police action. One species taking responsibility for maintaining order throughout known space. Yes, Admiral Chen agreed. That's exactly what we're describing. Someone needs to stand between the predators and their prey. Earth volunteers for that duty. Captain Torres added his voice to the discussion. Counselors, before today, your response to aggressive species was to run away and hope they stopped chasing you. How well did that work against the Reapers? The question was rhetorical, but several council members answered anyway with bitter acknowledgments of failure. The peaceful species had been helpless against dedicated predators. Dr. Kovich concluded the human presentation. Honored counselors, Earth offers you a simple bargain. We will protect any species that asks for protection. In return, we ask only for the right to exist and the understanding that sometimes protection requires violence. The final vote was held after 6 hours of debate. When the results were announced, 300 species had voted to accept Earth's protection. 0 had voted against it. The abstentions were explained simply by Counselor Thisonar. How do you vote against the only force in the galaxy capable of keeping you alive? The Galactic Accords were signed that day, establishing Earth as the official protector of civilized space. The document was simple and direct, written in language that even Deathworld barbarians could understand. Admiral Chen signed for humanity, her signature sealing a promise that would change the galaxy forever. As she set down the stylus, reports began arriving from across known space. Reaper fleets were withdrawing from their advanced positions. Other aggressive species were canceling their expansion plans. The word had spread faster than light itself. Earth was watching, and Earth did not forgive those who preyed upon the innocent. The age of galactic peace through superior firepower had begun, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. 6 months later, Deathworlder had become both a warning and a promise throughout civilized space. Pirates surrendered rather than face human patrol ships.